Hello, my name is Martin Hill. I'm Chair of NHS Lanarkshire Board, and what I want to do is just talk a wee bit about what the Health Board considered at its meeting today, and also some thoughts that have flown from that. Also, I think it's important that we just reflect on where we are as an organisation and what the board are committed to moving forward. I think one of the things to say was that the context of the work of the Health Board is set within the context of public sector reform, and at the moment what we're seeing is a recognition that if we continue to do what we've always done in the ways we've always done it, we're not going to be able to meet the demands of patients and the wider public. And that's true for all public sector, that the world is changing and we need to change with it. Now, some of you may know that I'm also involved with the Scottish Environment Protection Agency. Now, that's a regulator, and I was in a meeting the other day where we talked about standards, regulation standards. And at the time these standards were set, they may have been sensible, but now if all we do is regulate to those standards, we're not going to meet the challenge of climate change, because our understanding of climate change and how the world is changing have changed rapidly. And so we need to go in a different direction and go way beyond simple compliance to the old standards. And the same is true in the health service, that a lot of the ways of working were developed years and years ago. A lot of the standards we work to are things that we've always done. But they're not going to cut it. They're not going to be sufficient to meet the demands of patients, the public, our changed demography, our ageing population, if we just continue to try and do as we've always done. Because part of the public sector reform agenda is recognising the constraints, that we can't keep spending money to maintain the current ways of working because they're not appropriate. And so issues like efficiency and productivity are going to be an important element that we have to consider in the way we work. Now, at the board meeting this morning, we had some great discussion. One of the things that I touched on was to reflect the importance that a lot of our communities were identifying around the need for support around mental health and well-being. And so we were reflecting on the fact that the board agenda tends to be much more concentrated on what you might call general acute services around the hospitals, the three main hospitals. And I think what we want to do is look at shifting that balance and get a wee bit more focus around what we're able to do around mental health and well-being, both for patients and for staff across the organisation. But in the meeting itself, one of the most important reports, one of the newest types of reports, is called the Integrated Performance and Quality Report. And that is something which, if you're interested, you should really try and read. It's available on the intranet, and it's a standard report which will come to all board meetings. And essentially that takes a whole range of the targets and performance indicators from across the work, across the board, and gives us a snapshot of how we're doing in terms of our performance. And there's a lot in there about our quality standards as well. And so that helps us focus, and we were able to identify some of the great work that's been done to, for example, improve the organisation's performance around how we handle complaints, for example, which are much more rapidly dealt with now. We're seeing that the wait times, the longest wait times for patients to get treatment, either as an inpatient or day case, are coming down and are actually slightly less now than even the trajectory that we agreed with the government. So we're doing very well there. Another example was in our child and adolescent mental health services, where the waiting time for treatment within that service has been reducing dramatically as well, and the size of the waiting lists have been reduced. So these are just some examples of some very good work that's going on across the board, and that report helps to highlight that brilliant work that's happening. But even in the most pressured services in our acute hospitals, at the front door and also within our wards, we're seeing a lot of good work on the back of Operation Flow. And so a lot of our discussion this morning was around how that was going and the next stages of the work as we head into winter. And one of the things that struck me and the board was that many of you will remember that last winter, particularly in December, was a very pressured time in many departments. And although winter is always going to be a heavy time of year, this year we have a plan, and Operation Flow is setting out just how we need to change to be able to address the kind of pressures that are going to come our way. And part of the impact of Operation Flow is to recognise that just as in SEPA, where regulations and standards have to change, practices have to change, because we don't want to admit patients to beds in hospital where there's an appropriate, a better alternative pathway for that patient. We don't want to run hospitals with occupancy levels at over 100%, because that just increases the pressure on everybody. So there's a real focus on things like bed occupancy and making sure that the flow through the hospital is the most appropriate for patients. The longer patients stay in hospital, the less able they are, particularly frail elderly patients, then to recover and get the right kind of support. And so there are all sorts of reasons why our systems need to change, and that means there are opportunities for the staff themselves, for you, to change the way that you work. So there's something about the board looking to you, looking to everybody across NHS Lanarkshire in joining us in saying we have to change the way we're working, and there are real opportunities to do so. New systems are being developed. You've got an opportunity to become part of those systems and to change the way of working, to become more efficient, to deal with some of the inefficiencies that we've had to deal with in the past. That's not going to be easy for everybody, but change is something which will deliver continuous improvement in services for patients and is our responsibility to the community. And if people change, if people accept the challenge, if you like, and help deliver the new systems of working, the board will have your back. We recognise that this is not going to be easy, and supports will be necessary, but this is what the executive team are there to help provide. So I think one of the messages from the board today is that we need everybody to recognise that we cannot keep going the way we have always worked, that the world is changing, the constraints within which we work are changing, but that throws up new opportunities and new systems. So get involved with the new systems of working, engage with Operation Flow in a way which helps you deliver even better services to patients, in a way which you're able to make the full use of your skills and abilities, and the board will support you all the way. So thank you for listening to this message, and once again, if you're interested in the work of the board, the recording of this morning's board meeting is available on the intranet, and as I say, I would urge you to look at some of the papers just to give you an idea of all of the issues that the board take into consideration and to recognise in terms of the great work that you're all doing. Thank you.